Darcy Headley stood in the Boulder County Land Office, her heart pounding with excitement as she held the listing for Whispering Winds Ranch in her hands. The crisp air of autumn filled the room, carrying a mix of dust and history, mingling with the scent of old paper. She could almost hear the whispers of opportunity echoing from the 320 acres waiting to be claimed. Water rights included, intact structures, and an asking price of just $1,000. A deal that felt too good to be true. But there was a catch, or so warned Edith, the land clerk seated across from her. With a tired demeanor marked by years behind the desk, Edith leaned back in her chair and folded her arms. 5 owners in 18 months, she said flatly, her tone suggesting disinterest, but her eyes revealing curiosity about Darcy's intentions. Darcy raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. "What happened to them?" she asked, leaning forward as if drawing secrets from Edith's reluctance to divulge more. "They all left within 8 weeks, Edith replied without missing a beat. Her voice dropped slightly as if sharing gossip over coffee rather than discussing real estate. "They claimed it was cursed, strange occurrences driving them away." "Strange occurrences? Like what?" Darcy asked briskly, already jotting down notes in her well-used notebook. She had learned long ago that separating superstition from fact was crucial in this line of work. Edith shrugged dismissively, but continued nonetheless. First owner complained that his equipment broke down unexpectedly. His new tractor engine seized up. Well, pump failed 3 times. Even barn doors fell off their hinges. Darcy frowned at this litany of misfortunes, but kept writing. She had encountered worse tales than those before, and turned around properties others deemed unsalvageable through sheer tenacity alone. The second owner was a young couple who swore they heard crying at night, Edith continued slowly. A woman or child, they never found where it came from. "What did the third owner say?" Darcy prompted with genuine interest. "He lasted only 12 days, Edith stated bluntly. Tough old rancher he was. Didn't scare easy, but he wouldn't talk about what happened to make him leave." A glimmer flickered across Edith's face then, a hint of knowingness, as if she held some insight into these stories beyond mere hearsay. Darcy absorbed every word while calculating costs and potential gains in her mind. The property had water rights. Here in Colorado, that fact alone could elevate its value exponentially compared to surrounding lands when sold on the open market. "What's the property tax situation?" she asked suddenly, surprising herself with how practical it sounded amid such superstition-laden conversation. Edith blinked again, a clear indication that practicality wasn't something often requested here, and answered carefully, "About $300 annually, current through year-end since it's owned by the county." Darcy felt a rush of determination as she stood in the Boulder County Land Office, surveying the property listing for Whispering Winds Ranch. The air was thick with potential, and her heart raced with excitement at what lay ahead. She leaned closer to the paper, focusing on every detail while she processed Edith's words about the history of the land. 5 owners had come before her, each claiming they experienced something unsettling, a curse that chased them away. 5 owners in 18 months? Darcy repeated incredulously, her green eyes narrowing with curiosity. "What exactly happened to them?" Edith settled into her chair, arms crossed as if bracing herself for a tale fraught with mystery. "Well," she began slowly, "the first owner swore his equipment malfunctioned repeatedly. He claimed his brand-new tractor engine seized up unexpectedly." Darcy scribbled notes, blocking out Edith's incredulous tone as she fought against any notion of superstition creeping into her thoughts. "And?" she prompted. "The second couple reported hearing things at night," Edith continued, rolling her eyes slightly as if dismissing their fears. "Crying sounds, like a woman or child in distress. They never found the source and left soon after." "And what about the third owner?" Darcy pressed on, intrigued by how fear could twist someone's reality. "He lasted just 12 days, an old rancher known for his grit who wouldn't talk about why he left. All he said was that the land wanted to be left alone. Darcy couldn't help but smile inwardly at this folklore spun around the ranch. It might frighten some off, but not her. Instead of deterring her from making a bid for ownership, it only fueled her ambition further. This would be no ordinary investment opportunity. It could become legendary. "What's the annual property tax?" Darcy asked abruptly, interrupting Edith's narrative. "About $300 annually," came Edith's cautious reply. The clerk seemed surprised that someone would think practically amidst such eerie tales surrounding Whispering Winds Ranch. A smirk crept onto Darcy's face as she realized how easily those details could deter others. Yet for her business model based on distressed properties and leveraging numbers to find opportunities where others saw curses instead of cash flow, this place was worth so much more than its asking price of $1,000. "Count me in," Darcy declared firmly as she pulled 10 crisp $100 bills from her wallet and laid them confidently on Edith's desk. The disbelief written across Edith's face merely added to Darcy's resolve as she demanded that papers be drawn up immediately. "Miss Headley!" Edith exclaimed incredulously before faltering under Darcy's unwavering stare. "I don't think you understand." "I do understand perfectly," Darcy countered smoothly, while shoving aside doubts cast by old wives' tales and supernatural whispers claiming dominion over this piece of land meant for thriving life rather than despair. Or so she'd make it happen. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over Whispering Winds Ranch, Darcy stood in front of the barn with a sense of determination. The weight of the decision she had made earlier that day settled on her shoulders, but there was no time for second-guessing. She needed to prepare for what lay ahead. Checkers whinnied softly beside her, sensing her resolve. With a practiced hand, she set about gathering supplies from inside the barn. Each movement was efficient as she pulled ropes, blankets, and everything else necessary for loading Sunny and Little River onto the trailer. Darcy's heart raced with excitement at the thought of taking them into town for veterinary care. She wanted to ensure they received the best treatment possible after all they'd been through together. The barn smelled of fresh hay mixed with a hint of leather from the saddles that hung against the wall. Darcy paused for a moment to take it all in. This place was alive now in ways it hadn't been when she first arrived. She turned her attention back to Sunny's stall and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over her. "We've come so far already," she murmured softly to herself. Sunny watched her with intelligent eyes, standing tall despite her condition, as if sensing their shared journey ahead. "Let's get you two ready," Darcy said cheerfully while holding up a lead rope, a gesture that drew Sunny closer without hesitation. As Darcy approached Sunny, she noticed how calm and steady the mare had become since giving birth just days prior. The golden coat gleamed in the fading light. Even more striking was how fiercely protective she remained over River. The foal nickered gently at his mother's side, unaware yet of how significant this moment would be. Once inside Sunny's stall, Darcy attached the halter carefully around Sunny's muzzle before leading her out into the open air where Checkers stood waiting patiently nearby. "You're going to love this," Darcy encouraged as they walked together toward the trailer parked by an old oak tree, the trunk gnarled but majestic under its own canopy. With each step taken along that well-worn path between barn and trailer, Darcy felt an electric thrill course through her veins. Today would mark another turning point for them all. Loading them into this transport symbolized more than just a trip. It represented hope and new beginnings for Whispering Winds Ranch, a stark contrast to what past owners had experienced here. "Easy does it now," Darcy instructed as they reached the trailer ramp. Checkers danced nervously beside them, his instincts always attuned to potential danger, but today he knew better than to fret unnecessarily alongside these two gentle souls. Sunny stepped forward hesitantly at first, nostrils flaring wide as she sniffed cautiously at unfamiliar surroundings before realizing nothing harmful awaited beyond those doors. just safety and comfort provided by someone who believed in both horse and land alike. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting a warm glow over Whispering Winds Ranch as Darcy stood beside the trailer, her heart racing with anticipation. The air was filled with the scent of fresh hay, mingling with the earthy aroma of damp soil, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of nearby cottonwoods. Today marked a new chapter for both her and the horses she had just brought home. "Come on, Sonny, let's get you settled," she called softly, her voice steady yet inviting. She felt a swell of determination wash over her as she approached the trailer door, ready to welcome them into their new life. Sonny took hesitant steps forward, glancing around as if assessing this unfamiliar territory. Her golden coat gleamed under the fading sunlight, like a beacon promising hope in a place that had seen its fair share of despair. Darcy crouched down slightly to meet Sonny's gaze, offering her an encouraging smile. "You're safe now. This is your home." With a tentative nicker, Sonny sniffed at Darcy's outstretched hand before stepping fully into the open space of the barnyard. Checkers followed closely behind, his instincts alert but trust growing stronger each day. He sensed Darcy's confidence and mirrored it in his own way. The Appaloosa mare moved gracefully alongside him as they ventured deeper into their new world. Darcy led them toward the barn entrance, where shafts of golden light streamed through gaps in the wooden structure, illuminating dust particles dancing through the air like tiny fairies celebrating their arrival. Inside awaited a cozy haven. Fresh bedding lay neatly arranged in stalls, while shadows crept playfully across walls adorned with remnants of past equestrian life. "Welcome home," Darcy murmured softly as she stepped inside first, its familiar surroundings instantly imbued with warmth thanks to previous caretakers who'd left behind not only memories, but also traces of love for these animals. She gestured for Sonny and Checkers to follow her in, guiding them slowly to their designated stalls. As they entered one by one, Checkers instinctively placed himself between Sonny and any perceived danger. Darcy felt an undeniable connection growing stronger among them all. It was as though each creature understood that they were bound together by more than just circumstance. She watched intently as Sonny explored her stall, a soft, nickering sound escaping from deep within that resonated like music filling up every corner around them. With careful attention, Darcy began settling some fresh hay for her, while keeping an eye on Checkers, who curiously inspected another stall just down from theirs. "You'll be happy here," she promised reassuringly, while gently stroking Sonny's neck. It was warm beneath her fingers, a heartbeat echoing resilience against everything life had thrown at this mare. Thus far, Darcy watched as Sonny cautiously stepped into her new stall, the soft rustle of fresh hay filling the air with a comforting scent. Checkers stood protectively at her side, his ears flicking back and forth as he sensed the excitement brewing within their little family. It felt like more than just an ordinary day. This moment marked a significant shift for them all. With each hoof that crossed the threshold of the trailer, Darcy saw not only an opportunity for growth, but also the promise of healing and hope. "Easy does it now," she murmured softly, reassuringly guiding Sonny forward. The mare hesitated at first, nostrils flaring as she took in the unfamiliar surroundings around her. But there was no fear here, just a safe haven waiting to welcome her in. Checkers shuffled beside them, maintaining his usual air of vigilance while instinctively keeping himself between Sonny and anything he deemed a potential threat. As they stepped inside one by one, Darcy couldn't shake off the feeling that their fates were intertwined. It was as if each creature recognized that they had embarked on this journey together. She caught sight of Checkers exploring another stall down from theirs, his keen eyes darting around in curiosity. Sonny stepped further into her space, nickered softly, a sound reminiscent of music resonating through the barn walls, bringing warmth and life to every corner around them. With gentle hands, Darcy began to settle some fresh hay in front of her. It felt warm beneath her fingers, a heartbeat echoing resilience against everything life had thrown at this remarkable mare thus far. "You'll be happy here," Darcy promised sweetly, while stroking Sunny's neck with careful affection. The mare seemed to lean into her touch ever so slightly, a small sign that perhaps trust could be built amidst past fears. Checker's movements became more relaxed too as he wandered about his own stall with newfound confidence. Noticing how both horses settled into their spaces brought an unexpected swell of joy within Darcy's chest. It was a testament to what they could achieve together. After ensuring they were comfortable enough for now, she turned her attention back to Sunny, who had begun munching on the tender hay she'd provided. A faint crunch echoed pleasantly throughout the barn. "You've got such spirit," she remarked softly to Sunny. "It's what makes you special." At this moment, a fleeting one, Darcy imagined all they would accomplish together. Training sessions under the sun where they would forge deeper connections through trust and understanding. She envisioned races where River would shine brightly as he'd inherit his mother's grace and intelligence. A legacy worth nurturing. But reality soon tugged at her mind like an unwelcome shadow lingering just out of reach. Memories resurfaced. The dark past associated with Whispering Winds Ranch still loomed overhead like storm clouds ready to unleash chaos once again if given half a chance. As the sunlight streamed through the barn's high windows, Darcy took a deep breath, savoring the earthy scent of fresh hay mixed with the soft musk of horses. She glanced at Checkers, who stood protectively near Sunny, his ears flicking back and forth as he adjusted to this new environment. The bond between them felt instinctual, a silent understanding that they were all in this together. "Let's see what we can do today," she murmured, her voice steady yet warm as she approached Sunny's stall. The Palomino mare raised her head, her deep eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and wariness. Darcy knew it would take time for Sunny to trust her fully, especially after everything that had happened. But there was an undeniable spark between them, a flicker of hope that nudged at Darcy's heart. With gentle movements, she extended her hand toward Sunny, palm open, as if offering peace instead of threat. "I'm not going to hurt you." Her voice resonated softly in the quiet space, while Checkers moved slightly closer to support his owner's efforts. Sunny regarded her intently, nostrils flaring as she took in both Darcy's scent and intentions. Darcy could feel the tension radiating from Sunny. Muscles quivered beneath her golden coat like tightly wound springs ready to snap back at any moment. In response, she took another step forward but remained non-threatening, each motion deliberate and controlled. "You're safe here," she reassured softly, almost whispering as if sharing a secret. Sunny hesitated before taking a cautious step toward Darcy's outstretched hand. It was subtle, yet profound. Their connection grew stronger with each breath shared between them. Encouraged by this small victory, Darcy gently stroked Sunny's neck, running her fingers through the silky mane that glimmered under the sunlight like spun gold. "You have such spirit," she praised quietly while noting how the mare leaned into her touch just slightly. An invitation wrapped in delicate layers of trust being carefully woven between them. The atmosphere shifted into something more relaxed as Checkers wandered off to nibble on some nearby grass outside the barn door while keeping one watchful eye trained on them both. Sensing that this moment held potential for deeper connection and wanting to keep it alive, Darcy decided it was time for some training exercises. "Let's try something simple," she said cheerfully, while stepping back to fetch a lasso coiled neatly on a hook by the wall, an old remnant from years spent working with cattle and horses alike. She demonstrated how it moved effortlessly through air without creating noise or panic among those present, smooth arcs cutting elegantly across empty space until finally resting lightly around Sunny's shoulders, not tight enough to cause alarm, but secure enough for comfort. That's right. Just like that, she encouraged when Sunny didn't flinch, instead maintaining calmness even when feeling confined within an unfamiliar object, encircling her body carefully, as though welcoming its presence rather than resisting against it entirely. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across Whispering Winds Ranch, Darcy felt a shift in the air. The evening was tranquil, but an unsettling energy loomed, hinting that challenges were on their way. She had just finished brushing Sunny and was giving River gentle pats when she noticed figures approaching from the distance. The rhythmic sound of hooves drew nearer, and soon 2 riders emerged from the twilight, flanked by a couple of others lagging behind. They rode with purpose, their expressions grim. Darcy's heart sank. There was something about their posture that suggested they weren't here for a friendly visit. "Hey there," she called out cheerily while stepping forward to meet them, her heart racing just slightly at the unexpected visitors. "What brings you all out this way?" One of the riders, a burly man with a weathered face and steely eyes, nudged his horse closer and regarded her with skepticism. "You're Miss Hadley?" he asked bluntly, not bothering to conceal his judgment. "That's me. Welcome to Whispering Winds," she replied warmly, as if trying to dispel any tension lingering between them. His companions exchanged glances before he continued. "I'm Caleb Thorne's associate. We've come to talk business." His words hung in the air like an ominous cloud threatening rain. Darcy straightened her back instinctively at the mention of Thorne's name. Memories of confrontation flooded her mind, the threats made against her, and what she had fought against for so long gnawed at her composure. "Business? I'm afraid I don't have any dealings with him or his crew." Thorne's associate smirked knowingly, as if he'd been expecting her resistance. "You really think you can keep this place going? You may have scared off some thugs last week, but you're only delaying the inevitable." He gestured dismissively toward Sunny and River grazing nearby. "You think those horses are worth more than what we could do with this land?" Darcy felt heat rising in her chest, but forced herself to remain calm. She knew how crucial it was not to show vulnerability in front of these men. Instead of responding immediately, she took a deep breath and focused on Sunny's serene movements, the mare calmly chewing hay as though oblivious to impending danger. "They're worth everything," Darcy finally replied firmly as she crossed her arms over her chest protectively. "This ranch has potential beyond your wildest dreams." "You really believe that?" One of Thorne's men scoffed, shaking his head incredulously as if Darcy's belief was utterly absurd. "Believe it or not," she pressed on without wavering under their scrutiny, "Whispering Winds will thrive because I'll make sure it does, legally and ethically." Laughter erupted among them, a harsh sound that seemed meant solely to ridicule rather than amuse. "Legally? Ethically? Lady?" Thorne's associate leaned closer on his saddle like a predator eyeing its prey, voice low and mocking. "You have no idea who you're dealing with?" Darcy stood confidently in the barn, the crisp morning air infused with the earthy scent of hay and the sweet musk of horses. The quiet was interrupted only by Sunny's soft whickers as she nibbled on her breakfast, her golden coat gleaming in the sunlight streaming through the open door. Darcy had come to recognize this serenity as a prelude to something significant. Today marked the beginning of training exercises for Sunny. "Let's try something simple," she said brightly, reaching for a lasso coiled meticulously on a hook against the wall, an artifact from days spent roping cattle and working closely with horses. With an easy grace, she unraveled it and demonstrated how it glided effortlessly through the air, creating smooth arcs that danced around them like a gentle breeze. Darcy's heart raced with excitement as she approached Sunny. The mare lifted her head, ears pricked forward in curiosity. "Now watch this," Darcy encouraged as she twirled the lasso above her head before letting it float down around Sunny's shoulders, not too tightly, but snug enough to be reassuring rather than alarming. Sunny didn't flinch. Instead, she stood calm and composed under Darcy's careful touch, almost welcoming this new experience instead of resisting it. "That's right. Just like that. Darcy praised with enthusiasm when she saw Sonny respond positively. But there was no denying that the tension hung thick in the air. Even though this exercise seemed benign, both women sensed unspoken threats lurking just beyond their peaceful haven. Thorne's men were still out there, watching for any signs of weakness or opportunity. Darcy crossed her arms over her chest protectively as they came into view once again. A wave of rough-looking figures on horseback appearing at the edge of her property, like dark clouds gathering on an otherwise bright day. They sneered at her efforts from atop their horses, one man shaking his head dismissively as he eyed Darcy and Sonny disdainfully. "You really think you can train that mare?" he scoffed, disbelief etched across his face as though implying such endeavors were futile at best. Darcy stood firm beneath their scrutiny, her resolve unwavering despite their jeers. "Believe it or not," she replied steadily, "Whispering Winds will thrive because I'll make sure it does, legally and ethically." Her words flowed outward with conviction that echoed through the barn walls. Their laughter erupted harshly in response, a cacophony meant solely to mock her aspirations rather than amuse anyone present. One associate leaned closer on his saddle like a predator evaluating its prey, his voice dripping with derision as he retorted lowly, "Legally? Ethically? Lady, you have no idea who you're dealing with." Her heart pounded fiercely in response to their taunts, every nerve ending ignited by instinctive caution, propelled by years spent standing tall amidst adversity. But today wasn't about fear, it was about defiance, and so she held her ground against their intimidation tactics. The laughter echoed off the barn walls, harsh and derisive, as Darcy held her ground against Thorne's men. She could feel her heart racing in her chest, each beat fueled by a fierce determination to protect what she had fought so hard for. They were dismissive of her dreams and intentions, but she refused to let their mockery shake her resolve. "Do you think scaring me will make me back down?" Darcy challenged, her voice steady despite the simmering tension in the air. The scent of hay mingled with the earthy smell of horses filled the barn, grounding her amidst the hostility surrounding her. One of Thorne's associates leaned forward in his saddle, eyes gleaming with malicious amusement. "Scare you? We're just here to remind you how foolish it is to stand against us," he sneered, brushing his fingers over the pommel of his saddle like a predator grooming itself before pouncing on its prey. Darcy's fingers tightened around the rifle resting at her side. She could feel a bead of sweat trickling down her back. "Whispering Winds has potential beyond your wildest dreams," she declared defiantly, each word laced with conviction that radiated from deep within. Their laughter erupted anew, a jarring sound that grated against her nerves like nails on chalkboard. For a brief moment, doubt flickered through Darcy's mind like a shadow flitting past candlelight. Yet amid their jeers, she felt an unyielding fire blaze within her. Fear would not dictate this fight. "You don't know what I'm capable of." "What are you going to do? Call the sheriff? Or maybe write him a letter?" one man taunted between chuckles. "Don't need to," Darcy replied coolly, meeting their gaze without flinching. "I've already contacted him." A lie tasted bitter on her tongue. She hadn't reached out yet, but if it gave them pause for thought even for an instant, it was worth it. Caleb Thorne shifted atop his horse slightly closer now. Disdain etched across his features made him look older than he was, hardened by years living outside lawful boundaries. He studied Darcy as if trying to discern some hidden weakness lurking beneath surface bravado. "You really think anyone cares about some fancy land rights? Out here we take what we want," he said it coldly. As uncertainty settled like thick fog across the barnyard floor, shrouding hopes and ambitions into shadows, Darcy felt herself growing lighter instead. Clarity cut through intimidation like sunlight piercing gray clouds. This wasn't merely about gold or land. It was about standing up for those who couldn't stand for themselves. The mare and foal nestled safely nearby, depending solely on her courage now, more than ever before. Then came that familiar sound. The soft nickering from Sunny echoed through open stalls, as though urging Darcy onward despite mounting tensions outside, calling attention back toward what truly mattered amidst threats looming larger than any fears rattling inside her chest. The tension in the barn crackled like a live wire, each man's sneer and scoff penetrating Darcy's resolve. She squared her shoulders, standing firm against the encroaching threat as she felt the weight of their malevolent laughter. The men on horseback towered over her, their eyes gleaming with mockery and contempt, predators sizing up their prey. Legally? Ethically? One of them mocked, leaning forward with a predatory grin that sent shivers racing down her spine. Darcy clenched her fists at her sides, every muscle taut as she fought to suppress the fear surging within her. She could feel adrenaline coursing through her veins like wildfire. Years of hardship had forged an ironclad will. Today wasn't about fear. It was about defiance. This moment demanded courage, the kind of bravery that drew strength from the vulnerable lives depending on her. Sunny's soft nickering broke through the thick silence surrounding them. It reverberated in the air like a call to arms, urging Darcy to remember what truly mattered, not just land or gold, but protecting those who couldn't defend themselves, the mare and foal nestled safely nearby. As if sensing the gravity of their predicament, Sunny stepped closer to Darcy's side, exuding calmness despite the chaos unfolding around them. Her gentle presence grounded Darcy in reality, a reminder of why she would stand tall against these looming threats. "Back off," Darcy warned sharply, raising her chin defiantly toward Caleb Thorne and his crew. "This is my land now." Thorne laughed again, a chilling sound echoing through the barn walls as he gestured dismissively toward his associates. "You really think we care about some paper you waved around? Out here, we take what we want." His words slithered into Darcy's mind like poison ivy, suffocating and insidious, but she refused to let it fester. Instead, clarity washed over her like a cleansing rain. This battle transcended gold or property rights. It became personal. Inhaling deeply, she faced Thorne head-on and spoke steadily as if weaving an invisible barrier between herself and impending danger. "Whispering Winds will thrive because I'll make sure it does, legally and ethically." Her conviction rang true in every corner of the barn where shadows loomed large. There was power and vulnerability when paired with unyielding determination. Suddenly, sharp hooves pounding against earth echoed from outside, sending ripples of alarm through Thorne's gang, and urgency blossoming among them as they momentarily diverted attention away from Darcy. She didn't waste time questioning how long until they regained focus. Instead, instinct kicked in as clarity sharpened into purpose. She had to act swiftly. With renewed tenacity propelling her forward, Darcy stepped back toward Sunny's stall. Her heart raced louder than hooves drumming against dirt as thoughts collided wildly. Should she try to gather resources for defense? Call for help? Or was this a moment demanding bold action? The air inside the barn was thick with tension as Darcy's heart raced, her breath quickening with each passing second. She could hear the thundering hooves of Thorne's gang outside, a sound both foreboding and igniting a spark within her. It was a call to action. She had to protect Sunny and River from becoming victims of their greed. "Get away from that barn!" she shouted, her voice steady yet urgent as she gripped her rifle tightly. The men outside were caught off guard, exchanging glances of uncertainty, but none dared to move closer. At least, not yet. Darcy stepped into the open space between the stalls, ready for whatever came next. The scent of fresh hay mingled with the earthy musk of horse sweat, grounding her amidst the chaos brewing outside. She could almost hear Sunny's soft nickers echoing encouragement through the walls of wood and straw, a reminder that this fight wasn't just hers. It involved every soul on this property. Suddenly, one of Thorne's men broke away from the group and began advancing toward the barn door with deliberate steps. "Just hand over that mare and foal," he sneered, arrogance dripping from his words like venom. "You really think you can take us all on? You're just a woman playing in a man's world." His taunt hung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. But Darcy refused to back down. Her spine straightened as fire ignited in her chest. It wasn't merely about proving him wrong or reclaiming gold anymore. It was about standing firm against those who thought they could intimidate others into submission. "Out here," she retorted fiercely. "We defend what is ours." With that declaration hanging heavy in the chilly evening air, an unexpected wave of calm washed over Darcy. Clarity pierced through any lingering fear. Without hesitating further, Darcy adjusted her stance slightly before raising her rifle again, not to fire recklessly, but as a clear signal that she would not be cowed by threats or intimidation tactics. "You'll leave this place now," she commanded firmly, daring them to test how far she'd go. As if answering her challenge directly, another rider barked laughter while signaling his comrades forward, their confidence bolstered by numbers alone. But they seemed oblivious to how quickly things could spiral out of control for them. The stallion-like figure emerged from behind them. Caleb Thorne himself stepped forward with swaggering authority etched across his features, a predator moving in for an easy kill until he spotted Darcy standing defiantly at the entrance. "You're brave, I'll give you that," he growled disdainfully as his eyes narrowed into slits filled with malice. "But foolishness doesn't win fights." The atmosphere crackled with tension as Caleb Thorne's men shifted restlessly, their eyes darting between Darcy and the shadows of the barn. The pounding of hooves on the ground outside punctuated the standoff, sending a shiver down her spine, a reminder that they were not just there for intimidation, they were ready to act. Darcy stood resolute at the barn entrance, arms steadying her rifle as she faced them. "You're brave. I'll give you that," Thorne sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. His presence loomed larger than life, a predator reveling in an easy conquest until he locked eyes with Darcy. She could see the challenge etched into his features. He expected her to falter. But retreat was not an option. "You'll leave this place now," she declared, her voice unwavering despite the knot of anxiety tightening in her chest. Each word carried the weight of her determination, echoing in the empty space around them like thunder before a storm. Thorne chuckled darkly, his gang sharing in his mirth as they dismounted slowly, almost leisurely. The confidence radiating from them only fueled her resolve further. They believed their numbers would overwhelm her will. Yet something within Darcy stirred, a fierce pride ignited by all that was at stake. Sunny and River's safety depended on her refusal to back down. As Thorne stepped closer, she took stock of him, the hard lines of his face set against moonlight, calculating eyes that glimmered with greed, and felt a wave of defiance surge through her veins. "Foolishness doesn't win fights," he taunted again. "Maybe it doesn't," she shot back boldly, "but courage sure can." Her grip tightened on the rifle's cold barrel as adrenaline coursed through her body like wildfire. Sunny's low whinny sounded from behind her, reassuring yet alert, as if sensing that danger had breached their sanctuary. With one swift motion, Darcy swung toward Sunny's stall, where fear and instinct merged into an unyielding bond between mother and foal. The palpable energy among Thorne's men shifted dangerously when Sunny reared back momentarily before lowering herself defensively over River's trembling form. A primal roar erupted from deep within her throat, a sound woven from protective instincts honed through centuries, causing even Thorne to take an involuntary step back. Darcy seized upon this momentary distraction and stepped forward confidently, raising her rifle higher now. She aimed it squarely at Thorne's chest, a clear signal that she would not cower or relent under pressure. "This is my land," she asserted fiercely, daring him to dismiss its significance once more. Then chaos erupted. Without warning, one of Thorne's men lunged toward Sunny, while another grabbed for River. The mare charged forward instinctively. It was a whirlwind of movement and fury as hooves struck ground hard enough to shake loose dirt into clouds around them all, the confrontation spiraling into utter pandemonium right before Darcy's eyes. No. The tension in the air crackled like the static before a storm, and Darcy's heart raced as she braced herself for what came next. The chaos exploded around her. Sunny was a blur of gold fury, charging forward to defend her precious foal. Hooves thundered against the ground as she launched herself at Thorne's men, each step filled with fierce determination and unyielding instinct. Darcy didn't hesitate. She couldn't afford to. "No!" she shouted, panic lacing her voice as she aimed her rifle at the chaotic scene unfolding before her. In an instant, adrenaline surged through her veins. The stakes had never felt higher. A man lunged toward Sunny, hands reaching out greedily for River, but in that same heartbeat, Darcy pulled the trigger. The shot rang out sharp and clear, echoing off the barn walls. "Get away from my horses!" she yelled fiercely, every word fueled by a fire ignited from deep within, a primal need to protect those who depended on her strength. The sound of gunfire startled everyone. Men stumbled back in shock as they realized their bravado had met its match. Sunny whinnied a piercing call, raw with power and maternal instinct. It resonated through the night like a battle cry meant to rally warriors into action. Thorne took an involuntary step back at that sound. A flicker of uncertainty flashed across his face, but not long enough for Darcy to capitalize on it. Another goon advanced toward Sunny, while another two tried to flank Darcy from either side. "No!" She fired again, this time closer, grazing one of them just enough to send him sprawling into the dirt with a yelp of pain. With urgency coursing through every fiber of her being, Darcy positioned herself more strategically by the entrance of the barn, where shadows danced under moonlight. "Leave this place now!" she commanded boldly yet firmly, feeling both vulnerable and powerful at once. Her feet were planted firm against earth, while emotions swirled dangerously inside her. Fear mingled with fierce resolve, and somehow grew stronger in tandem. "We're taking that colt," snarled Caleb Thorne from somewhere behind his minions. He eyed Darcy like a predator assessing prey. Nothing could make him back down easily now that he was so close to what he believed was rightfully his. "That colt doesn't belong to you. This is my property," Darcy called out defiantly, despite how thinly stretched hope felt beneath layers of dread swirling around them all. Thorne chuckled darkly, a low rumble full of arrogance, as he stepped forward again. "You think you can stand up against us? We've handled tougher than you." He gestured dismissively towards his men gathered behind him like wolves waiting patiently for their alpha's command. "I might be alone here," she said breathlessly, while keeping rifle trained on him as best as possible, given how fast everything moved around them all. "But I'm not backing down." As if sensing opportunity slipping away fast amongst threats and tension thickening further still, it happened. Chaos erupted anew when Sunny charged ahead again. With a thunderous beat of hooves, Sunny surged forward, her golden coat gleaming in the dim light like a blazing sun as she charged at Thorne and his men. The air filled with dust as she moved, an embodiment of raw power and maternal instinct, ready to protect her foal at any cost. Darcy felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. This was their moment. "Get away from them!" Darcy shouted, her voice unwavering despite the chaos surrounding them. She pressed the rifle firmly against her shoulder, aiming it squarely at Thorne's chest. The threat pulsed in the air around them, thick with tension and danger. Thorne hesitated for just a fraction of a second, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face, before he barked orders to his men. "Grab that mare!" "Don't let her get away!" The command ignited another wave of frenzy as two men lunged towards Sunny while another reached out for River. But Sunny was a force of nature. She barreled into the fray with furious determination. Hooves struck the ground hard enough to send tremors through the earth, scattering dust and debris everywhere as if announcing their defiance. "Sunny!" Darcy called out instinctively, but even as she voiced concern for the mare's safety, there was an undeniable thrill coursing through her. The excitement that came from standing strong against those who threatened everything she had fought for. A skirmish erupted within moments. One man tumbled off his horse when Sunny kicked out fiercely, while another screamed as he stumbled back from a collision with the wall. The barn echoed with commotion, the high-pitched whinnies from Sunny mingling with shouts of surprise and panic from Thorne's crew. It was pure chaos, a beautiful dance of strength and courage unleashed. Darcy seized upon this disarray. Gripping her rifle tightly, she stepped forward further into view of Thorne and his remaining men. "This is my land," she declared resolutely again, steeling herself against fear that threatened to creep in, "and you're not taking anything from me." For every motion they made toward Sunny or River, attempts to ensnare or corral, she countered by adjusting her stance on the ground, ensuring each step was measured yet powerful. She wouldn't allow them to draw closer. The stakes were too high now. "Do you really think you can intimidate us?" Thorne spat back defiantly while sizing up both woman and horse in front of him as if he could will away their resolve simply by sheer disdain. "We've dealt with tougher than you," one henchman scoffed dismissively, but faltered under Darcy's unwavering gaze, a silent challenge igniting between them all. "I'm not going anywhere," Darcy insisted fiercely, before firing off another shot into the air, an unmistakable warning that rang through night like an alarm bell. It sent palpable ripples of hesitation across Thorne's crew once more. They exchanged uncertain glances, now aware they could be in over their heads. The tension in the air was electric, thick enough to slice through. Darcy stood her ground, her rifle steady in her hands as Sunny's fierce presence loomed beside her, muscles coiled and ready. The moonlight illuminated their determined silhouettes against the darkened barn backdrop. Thorne's laughter echoed around them, a mocking sound that only fueled Darcy's resolve. "Do you really think you can intimidate us?" Thorne jeered, his eyes narrowing as they flicked between Darcy and Sunny, assessing them like a predator would its prey. "I'm not backing down," she declared fiercely, her voice cutting through the night with surprising strength. She fired another shot into the air, a sharp crack that resonated like thunder above them. It served as both a warning and a rallying cry for herself and Sunny. In response to the shot, Sunny shifted slightly forward, an imposing figure of gold that radiated strength and defiance. Her nostrils flared as she seemed to sense the rising stakes. Fear had no place here. Only fierce protection for her foal remained. "Back off now!" Darcy shouted again, her heart pounding like wild hooves against earth. "This is private property." Thorne stepped closer again, his arrogance dripped from every word he spoke. "We've dealt with tougher than you," he sneered dismissively at both woman and mare before motioning towards his men who were beginning to gather their courage again. But then, there it was, a momentary flicker of uncertainty among Thorne's crew sparked by Darcy's unwavering resolve and Sunny's poised readiness. The scent of sweat mixed with adrenaline hung heavy in the air as they hesitated just long enough for hope to flourish within Darcy. Sunny reared slightly on her hind legs, releasing a piercing scream that reverberated through the stillness, the sound echoing both challenge and warning all at once. It sent shivers up Darcy's spine. She felt an intense bond forming between them, an alliance forged in shared urgency and danger. "Get back," she commanded one last time, stepping forward cautiously while maintaining focus on each man's movement behind Thorne. If they moved toward her or Sunny, she knew she'd have to act swiftly. Nothing could threaten their newfound partnership now solidified by trust forged under fire. Darcy took a breath, steadying herself against the chaos swirling around them all. A combination of imminent peril, yet undeniable unity, binding horse and rider deeper than ever before. In this charged moment, filled with potential calamity, lay something transformative blossoming between them. Loyalty, born from mutual defense against those who sought to exploit or harm. Then came help from unexpected quarters. The thunderous sound of hoofbeats broke through the night air outside their standoff circle. Riders galloped closer, Sheriff Craig leading a posse of deputies bearing arms ready for action, promising deliverance from impending danger as they rushed into view like knights charging forth into battle for justice. Enough! The tension in the air shifted as Sheriff Craig and his posse thundered into view, their horses charging forward like a surge of hope against the darkness. Darcy stood firm, heart pounding in her chest, rifle steady as she faced Thorne and his crew. The sight of lawmen arriving ignited a fire within her, no longer merely defending what was hers, but standing for justice itself. "Drop your weapons," Craig commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. The deputies fanned out behind him, rifles raised and aimed steadily at Thorne's group. Thorne's bravado faltered under the weight of authority. "You'll regret this, Headley," he spat, eyes blazing with fury as he weighed his options. He glanced nervously at his men, who had begun to lower their weapons in surrender as the reality of their situation sank in. "Don't let him intimidate you," Darcy called out with fierce confidence. "They're nothing without their lies." Craig moved closer to Darcy's side, giving her an approving nod before turning back to Thorne. "I suggest you leave quietly if you know what's good for you." His tone was matter-of-fact, yet commanding. There would be no room for negotiation here. With grim expressions painted across their faces, Thorne's men began dropping their ropes and tools onto the barn floor with reluctant clinks that rang ominously. One by one, they stepped back until only Thorne remained, glaring defiantly at both Craig and Darcy. "You won't keep us from this land forever," he hissed before finally backing away with a sneer. As he turned to flee into the dark shadows beyond the ranch's perimeter, Darcy felt an overwhelming sense of relief wash over her. What had once felt like an insurmountable challenge had crumbled before them. The adrenaline coursing through her veins began to subside as she lowered her rifle slowly while watching Craig secure handcuffs on each member of Thorne's crew. Her breaths came easier now. She hadn't realized how tightly wound she'd been until this moment when danger receded into mere memory. "It's done," Craig said softly as he approached Darcy again after ensuring everything was under control. His eyes met hers with genuine respect shimmering beneath them, a mutual understanding forged through unexpected trials. In that fleeting exchange, amidst fading echoes of hoofbeats, Darcy knew they were no longer simply fighting for land or gold. They were champions for something far greater than themselves, integrity woven into every thread, binding Whispering Winds Ranch together, now stood resiliently unbroken. With newfound purpose stirring inside her chest like spring flowers blossoming after winter's grasp, she stepped forward into the light, illuminating Sunny and River, still nestled safely in their stall nearby. Her golden mare watching cautiously yet proudly beside her foal, who nuzzled against its mother's warmth.